What we're going to talk about today is the relationship between the hip-hop community, youth community, and law enforcement agencies. A lot of news has been, focused on this no snitching campaign, this informal campaign within the black community and in other communities. But unfortunately, the individuals that the media focuses on can't really articulate what that issue, how to define that issue, how we define snitching. Where this no snitching campaign comes from, how it goes all the way back to slavery. So what we want to do is actually have a more philosophical discussion and understanding of why we don't cooperate with law enforcement. My name is Troy Nkrumah. I chair the National Hip Hop Political Convention. It's the organization that's hosting this panel. A lot of our members are around here. We have chapters in cities all over the United States. So if you want to know more about us, we'll have some literature. We're doing a big hip hop convention in 2008, August 1st to the 3rd in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got flyers that we'll be passing around as well. The moderator is going to be Davey D. Anyone in here know who Davey D is?
Yeah!
If you don't know, he's been a hip-hop journalist before there was such thing as hip-hop journalist. He's been a long-time programmer, worked inside the system, and now works outside the system doing his independent thing.
As Troy said, part of what we're discussing is the whole thing with the stop snitching and the political aspect to it, the one that wasn't represented on 60 Minutes when Cameron misspoke and kind of, made everybody seem like a fool, when there's actually some realistic and very concerned aspects and perspectives to that. Also, we want to talk about just the overall relationship with hip-hop and the police.
The rich are criminalizing the poor. And through that, poor people have trying to find means of survival. And the state's response to that is the prison industrial complex. So that's the context where I think we should start this conversation off.
Well, we gotta talk about poltical.
Yes.
Right, we gotta talk about that. An active, well-financed infiltration system, okay, that is still carrying on today, whether you talk about hip-hop or not, right? Right now, I always like to say, because it's always a continuation of that, Professor Natapol has kind of in her great law review on snitching, has said that in highly urban, concentrated areas, okay, that there's a possibility that from every 1 out of every 12 black men is being used as a government informant to create crimes, make names. It doesn't matter if those persons were actually guilty of anything. It doesn't matter. We don't care about that. Give us names so we can make arrests. Some people were like, look, absolutely, I cannot talk to the police. That relationship between law enforcement to protect and serve does not work for my community. That's not the case. They're here as an oppressive force to undermine and control me. So that's the relationship.
People who join these forces, that's just like the military. There's a lack of knowledge of what you're getting yourself into, especially with the young people, these informants, they're broke. With crime going on, they don't have any money, so they're looking for jobs. They're innocent coming in, but once they get in it, they kind of transform. That's like people in the military. They're hungry. They need money. They can't support their family. There's a lot going on. It's hard to get jobs, as it is, especially for young black people. So they go into the military, and then they turn into something else.
But the reality is the system of police in this country is morally bankrupt, corrupt, and ineffective. So we can't be talking about it in this sort of reformist kind of context. Like there could possibly be some people who are police officers, and because they misunderstand what the role is, the system is corrupt. There's not a big gap between what the overseer on the plantation was there to do, was to maintain this control. This is the role of police, as it is also the role of the education system, really, is to maintain the status quo and to make sure that power is imbalanced, right, and that the people don't gain power. So we know this is what the police are there for. They've never been there to protect the masses of the people. They've been there to protect people who have weapons. So because of that, it's not different in Detroit than it is in Oakland, because the institution is corrupt. And you can put black faces, brown faces, white faces, Asian faces in front of it, and it's still going to be corrupt because it's designed to be a blue face, right, that protects itself and monitors itself. As far as the young people in my experience working with them, I have a little bit different perspective. I think that as long as we are unorganized disorganized, siloed, fighting over how far to the left we should be, they should be afraid. We can't protect them. Why should they be afraid? Why shouldn't we teach our children like, hey, cross the other way, straighten up your, because they're getting murdered in the street and we're doing nothing. I had a staff person in my organization who was teaching the young people, and he was like, you know, teaching them, fuck the police, they ain't about shit, blah, 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 and this and that. But I felt that it was somewhat irresponsible. And I was like, that's not enough. And even when we talked about putting this panel together, I feel like it's titillating to say fuck the police, and I'm glad y'all came for that. But I told Troy, I was like, it's gotta be more than that. Because fuck the police sent a bunch of my young people out with an attitude, who then got hemmed up, choked in a plastic bag over their head. And like, so as far as organizers, if we're not getting ready, if we're not really prepared to come up with some alternatives and some shit that's beyond reform and really starting to talk about revolution, then we shouldn't be sending our babies out there talking about fucking revolution. I think one of the most important things that we have to do is we have to all stop trying to be leaders, and some of us need to follow. That's why we got 50,000 organizations and not one unified movement. Everybody wants to start, but you know, in my opinion, there's three kinds of people. There's people that hate, there's people that build, and there's people that watch. And either you're building something or not. And like, that's why I'm like, F the police is cool, but that's the hating piece. Right, what's the building piece?
A lot of people have come down hard on Cameron because of the 60 Minutes interview. And a lot of people were really angry with him for saying what he said on 60 Minutes. And you know, the hip-hop community lashed out against him, and of course, everybody else in the country lashed out against him. But what I didn't see was a hard criticism of the media that put him in that chair to represent hip-hop culture. And what I didn't see was a criticism of the structure of mainstream media to fail to represent us adequately. I mean, it's Cameron. Did you really expect him to say something super intelligent? There's a reason that they brought Cameron onto 60 Minutes and not Davey or KRS or Chuck D or M1 or any of the people that we listen to, and it's because they know that with someone like Cameron, they can control the conversation, they can manipulate the debate, they can use a trick question like, would you snitch on a serial killer, to discredit the Stop Snitching movement, when everybody in this room knows and everybody in hip-hop knows that that's a trick question. You cannot answer that question correctly. If you say yes, then it proves your point wrong, and if you say no, then it makes you look like a subhuman asshole, which is what happens. But we need to push the media to get people like KRS, Davey D, and Chuck D on the media, on Fox News, on CNN to represent us. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, all that they're doing is having a bias against hip-hop culture and serving an agenda to make us look bad, because we're actually starting to get our music to their little kids right now. I mean, first of all, to clarify what Stop Snitching is, Stop Snitching is not about seeing a woman get raped or having a serial killer living next door to you and not telling police. Stop Snitching is about when you fuck up and you get caught up by the cops and they tell you, you know what, we're gonna forgive what you did if you give away somebody else, or you at least testify against this other person so we can nab him. So you avoid your responsibility and your punishment to get somebody else in trouble. That's not honorable, no matter what. That is not an honorable thing to do. What's interesting is that Stop Snitching didn't start with hip-hop. No. Stop Snitching has been used by the FBI, the CIA, the Bush administration, the NYPD, the LAPD, Enron, and everybody else in white America and upper and middle class America for decades. You know what I'm saying? When George Tenet gets hung out to dry, he doesn't snitch on Bush. He takes it and then he gets a promotion or a field medal or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is on trial for something Dick Cheney did. He don't snitch out Dick Cheney and George Bush. He takes his rap if he knows he's going to get paid on the back end and probably pardoned. When Paul Wolfowitz gets outed from the Bush administration and takes a bunch of heat from the media, he gets promoted to president of the World Bank. You know what I'm saying? So it's he doesn't snitch out his people and try to avoid responsibility and get his family in trouble. He takes the heat. So we need to ask ourselves, who's the real gangsters? You know what I'm saying? Who's the real ruthless, cold-blooded motherfuckers that are running this country and who really started the Stop Snitching movement? It wasn't us, we're just following the model.